Madam Secretary, I yield back.
The gentlewoman from Missouri, Ms. Wagner, is now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Yellen, over here. Last month, the G7 leaders, of which the United States is one, agreed in a joint statement on an economic approach to China that would focus on, and I quote, de-risking, and rebukes calls for decoupling from China's economy. However, I have to say I think it's appropriate and, in fact, essential that we decouple from Chinese industries and entities that are actively participating in unthinkable human rights abuses, including the CCP's genocide of Uyghur Muslims. So please tell me, how does Treasury plan to de-risk the U.S. economy from this appalling tragedy?
Well, in the case of human rights violations and Xinjiang, there is no business. We have sanctions in place that prevent Americans from doing business with entities that are involved in human rights.
And that's how you're de-risking. You say you have sanctions. I'd like to see those sanctions and what companies have been sanctioned for doing business with China as they exploit the human rights of the Uyghur Muslims. If you could provide that, please.
Well, we've sanctioned Chinese individuals and entities for human rights abuses there, and
I'd like to get a list of those, if I could, please. And I do need to move on with respect. According to a recent Bloomberg report, Chinese purchases of Iranian crude had jumped in March by 20% month on month, totaling 800,000 barrels imported a day. In March, Iran said it is now exporting more oil today than at any time since the 2018 reimposition of sanctions. Current law requires Treasury to target foreign financial institutions that are involved in these sales. Ma'am, how many foreign financial institutions have you sanctioned as a result of these sales?
Well, we certainly are doing everything in our power.
That's not my question. How many foreign financial institutions have you sanctioned as a result of these sales and this huge 20% increase by Iran? So you don't know the answer. If you could, would you please provide me the answer? Because this is unconscionable, and I do not believe the Treasury is following the law, and it is a law that requires Treasury to, in fact...
We have an exceptionally tight sanctions regime in place with respect to
I don't know what your plan is to further
Iran.
tighten enforcement of these sanctions regimes against Iran as the country continues to make alarming progress on nuclear armament, but I am very interested in finding out. Next, Secretary Yellen, it has long been U.S. policy to support Taiwan's membership in international organizations where statehood is not a prerequisite. The International Monetary Fund has no conditions regarding statehood. The Financial Services Committee unanimously passed legislation supporting Taiwan's membership at the fund earlier this year. Taiwan already belongs to the WTO and the Asian Development Bank. If it sought, it being Taiwan, membership at the IMF, would Treasury support it?
We would have to look at that. It's not a member of the IMF.
If they sought it after this,
to.
unanimously, we have done that. We have passed that as a committee. Yes, I would like your response on that specific. This is 3 in a row now that I've asked for specifics that you don't have answers to, ma'am, and it's unacceptable. Let me ask another. Following up on some of my questions from my friends on the other side of the aisle, I want to ask you about the SEC's sweeping proposal on mandatory swing pricing, hard close, and liquidity risk management. Chair Gensler has said the proposal is needed to combat dilution, but I've seen no evidence from the SEC that dilution is a significant problem for mutual funds. In fact, I've seen some commenters offer their own economic analysis showing that dilution is minimal and far surpassed by returns for long-term investors. If implemented, the proposal would add significant costs and damages. Why is this? I guess I'd like to get your perspective on this misguided SEC proposal.
Well, it's a question you should be asking to Chair Gensler.
I know, but I'm
not
asking you,
to
but you
me.
can't answer this question
What if,
either.
I'm sorry, I'm going to answer the question.
Well, I'm out
What
of
if-
time.
What if,
So you'll have to answer this question in writing too. 4 questions that you'll have to answer in
Sorry, the gentlelady's time has expired, but the secretary can answer in writing for the record. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, is now recognized.
Madam Secretary, you won't have to answer in writing. I yield time to you to answer. You may answer now.
on the last
Yes.
on the last
yes,
question.
Yes, answer now, please.
Yes. Well, the Financial Stability Oversight Council has discussed risks in connection with open-end mutual funds, particularly bond mutual funds, where there can essentially be runs in situations where those who move first in these open-end funds are able to get better pricing than those who wait until later. And this creates a financial stability risk similar to the kind of risk that exists with money market mutual funds that has long been a subject of FSOC attention. And the FSOC has not been involved in advising the SEC how to address those risks, but swing pricing is a way to reduce or eliminate first mover advantage and to diminish the odds of runs that can lead to fire sales of assets that can have contagious effects throughout the financial system. And we saw this occur when the pandemic struck in March of 2020, and it was a reason that the Federal Reserve created a facility to try to stem those runs.
I thank my friend,
Thank you,
Mr.
Madam.
Green. I thank my